You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important and useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. And I just want to thank everybody for all their support. I'd like to thank every week people, because our listeners are growing all the time, and it's because of you, because you're sharing our podcasts and with your friends and family and business acquaintances. So we want to thank you for that, and because of that reason, our podcast continues to grow. I want to
you're listening to
just 1 second. There we go. I also want to remind everybody that you can listen to the Boomers Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher. Of course, you could go to the Boomers Today Radio website, or you could download our free app just on your, if you have an Apple phone or Android phone, just type in Boomers Today in your app store, and you could download it for free and keep up to date. And the reason so many of you are listening to our show is because we have wonderful guests, and I'm not going to disappoint you today. We have a great guest today. His name is Dr. Francisco Contreras, who serves as a director, president, and chairman of Oasis of Hope Hospital. A distinguished surgical oncologist, Dr. Contreras is renowned for combining conventional and alternative medical treatments with emotional and spiritual support to provide patients with the most positive treatment experience possible. Dr. Contreras has authored numerous books concerning integrative therapy, cancer and heart disease prevention, and chronic illness, including The Hope of Living Cancer-Free, The Hope of Living Long and Well, Beating Cancer, and Dismantling Cancer. His newest book, The Art of Science of Undermining Cancer, was released in October 2020. Dr. Contreras, it's an honor to have you on our show.
It is my pleasure and honor, Frank. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so I understand, and just looking a little bit on your website, there's a family history at Oasis of Hope Hospital. Tell us more about that.
Yes, my father was a renowned oncologist in Mexico. He was a very orthodox oncologist, director of a major center. And he was very frustrated like most oncologists about the results. And he came to the conclusion that the reason for the failure was not just technical, it was more philosophical, because we still are as doctors trained as mechanics or mechanics of the human body. And generally, we do not take into account the emotional and spiritual needs of patients, especially when they are diagnosed with quote unquote terminal illnesses like cancer. And so he began treating patients holistically way back in the late 50s, early 60s. And that gave birth to the Oasis of Hope. And so we've been treating patients holistically and integratively, including conventional and natural alternative therapies since 1963.
That's wonderful. And you've kind of taken the reins since then.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Good for you. So explain just again for our audience, when you talk, conventional therapy and different types of therapy, maybe you could help define those terms for us.
Yes, well, the conventional or orthodox therapies are the mainstream or the standard of care, which, for instance, in cancer, the most common are chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and surgery. Nowadays, targeted therapies are being promoted a lot, and I'm very happy for it, because in the last decade, no new chemotherapies have been developed, because targeted therapies have proven to be more effective and less aggressive. They're still aggressive and they still have side effects, but nothing like chemo.
All right.
And alternative therapies Our therapies that come about when something is not working well, right? Nobody's looking an alternative for an appendectomy. I mean, now we do surgeries endoscopically, but still we remove it. Why? Because it's almost 100% effective. So there's no need for an alternative. But in cancer therapy, when the failure rate is so high, well, we have to look for alternatives. Unfortunately, in the standard of care, that's very difficult to do. But there are a number of natural anti-tumor agents that have a tremendous scientific background that we are able to use. Many of them in America, and doctors don't use them. And some of them cannot be used in America, but here in Mexico, because of the big problem that we have with poverty, about half of our people live under a poverty line. And the poverty line in Mexico is very different from America. I think that in America, being poor is about, with an income of less than 20,000 or maybe less than 15,000. In Mexico, the poverty line is $1 a day, $365 a year. So the government is very open for doctors to help patients treat themselves with natural remedies. And so in Mexico, we have a lot more opportunity to use alternative therapies than in the US.
Great. So, when someone gives a diagnosis, you hear about someone who has been given a diagnosis, and usually the question asked is what stage? Stage 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Can you explain the various stages and what does that really mean?
Yes. It varies a little bit from tumor to tumor, but in general, we have 4 stages of cancer. Early stages 1 and 2 is when the tumor is localized in an area. Stage 1 is when the tumor is less than 2 centimeters, less than an inch, and where surgery has a very, very high rate of cure, almost 100%. Stage 2 is when the tumor is more than 2 centimeters, still operable, still curable. Stage 3 is when the tumor is more than 5 centimeters, or there are already regional lymph nodes involved and the cure rate is not so good. And stage 4 is when there is distant disease. So let's say you were diagnosed with cancer of the prostate, and now there are bone metastases. And it doesn't matter what the size of the original tumor is, as long as there are metastases, it's stage 4. And according to the books, the cure rate in those is virtually nil. Now, we have different experience. We have much better results with our combination therapies, but more or less that is how we stage cancers.
Got it. All right, that was a great explanation. Thank you for that. So, chemotherapy. Would you say that patients coming to you, are they coming to you after chemotherapy has failed, or do they come to you as an alternative to chemotherapy?
Yes, unfortunately, in most cases, I would say maybe 85 to 90% of the patients that come to the Oasis come when they have been sent home to die because nothing worked for them, none of the other therapies. And that's when people start looking for alternatives, So it is unfortunate, but that's how we receive our patients. And still, with those patients that have been sent home to die, our statistics are much better. Now, we do have like between 10 and 15% of the patients that come as a first option to us. And so we're able to help them even more. For instance, cancer of the breast in stage 4 with conventional therapies have about 13 to 16% 5-year survival rate. With us is 50% instead of 15. So, and that's in those patients that came to us after having failed to chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. Now, the patients that come to us virgin to treatment, the 5 in stage 4, the 5-year survival rate is 75%. So 75% instead of 15% is a major, major difference. And in all tumors, there are big, big differences in the outcomes when they start our protocols.
So what would you say to somebody who's based in the U.S., where they go, well, that's wonderful. You're based in Mexico, but why would I have to go to Mexico for this? Why can't I get this type of treatment that you provide in Mexico at Oasis? Why can't I get that in the U.S.?
There are a number of limitations and regulations that do not allow doctors to do that. But having said that, let me tell you that I'm very pleased that more and more doctors in America are now being open to do some alternative therapies. And they have to go through a lot of red tape in order to be able to do that, especially in states like California and Texas, New York. The regulations are so, for instance, we tried to work with a clinic in Orange County, and we were able to get started and do many of the things that we do here in Mexico. But the red tape was enormous, and the pressure. And so after about 3 years, we just had to close down. But there are some states where they're more open. And so I would just encourage people to look nowadays with the internet. You can find many, many places. So again, I'm very happy to hear that many American doctors are beginning to do quite a bit of the therapies that we do here. Some of them are just, completely prohibited in the States, and they're not in Mexico. And so patients would have to come here or maybe go to Germany. In Germany, they're more open. They used to be a lot more open before the EU, but there's still, there are some clinics that do a lot of alternative therapies or make alternative therapies available to their patients.
In doing the alternative therapy, what types of cancer? You mentioned breast cancer, but maybe other types of cancer that you've had pretty good success rate with. And
in the tumors that we have our best success is prostate for men, breast, I mentioned, ovarian cancer, very good results, colorectal cancers, very, very good results, lung carcinomas, which have a very poor prognosis, we have very good results. Those are the major, but we treat, virtually all types of cancer. And in our 55 years of servicing people with cancer, we treated all kinds of tumors and malignancies at the Oasis.
Great. We're going to take I promise, just a real quick break here just to recognize our sponsor. And we get back, I like to, we want to learn more how people could get a hold of you, but also I'm going to prepare you here, and I'd like to talk about kind of some of the side effects and how to overcome some of the side effects of chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery itself. So we'll be back in just a second. I want to recognize our sponsor today, Senior Care Authority, who is an elder care organization that has a national network of professionally trained and experienced local advisors to assist families in determining the right path for your loved ones. They'll discuss various long-term care options, whether it's in-home care, assisted living, memory care, nursing, or if you just need an advocate to get advice from, a local Senior Care Authority advisor can help you now. So for a complimentary 30-minute consultation with an advisor in your area, contact Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you could go to their website at www.seniorcareauthority.com. Just click on Find an Advisor, and it will connect you to someone in your area. We're back with Dr. Francisco Contreras, and he serves as Director, President, Chairman of Oasis of Hope Hospital. And just so we don't run out of time, Dr. Contreras, maybe you could share with our listeners if they want to get information on of Oasis of Hope Hospital, how would they go about doing that?
Our number is 888-500-HOPE. Our website is oasisofhope.com. And if you visit our website, you will find our new book called The Art and Science of Undermining Cancer for free as an ebook. You can download it for free. If you or a loved one has any problems with cancer and wants to know more about us or have an opinion, we offer a free consultation. If you send us information, we will review your case and give you an opinion.
Great. Thank you for that. So as I said right before we took that quick break, just overcoming, side effects. People get a little very concerned, going, I don't know if I want to go through chemotherapy, radiation, et cetera, even go through surgery. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, and there are, a number of things that people can do and that we do here at the Oasis of Hope when patients are receiving chemotherapy, and will have much better tolerance and outcomes. The results are better. So diet, for instance, plays a major role in helping patients tolerate chemotherapy much better. A low glycemic, quasi-vegan diet is the diet of choice for cancer patients. Another thing that improves tolerance to chemotherapy is exercise. Walking, a half an hour a day will improve tolerance to chemotherapy tremendously, and also makes chemotherapy work better. Detoxifying, so for instance, using a lot of liquids so that you can urinate more, and a very vegetarian diet so that you can have better bowel movements will help you get rid of all of those toxins that are pumped into you with chemotherapy, and so you will do better. There are a number of books available to you, and so if you find diet and chemotherapy, if you look for diet and chemotherapy, there are certain specific foods that you can eat to improve nausea, to improve pain, to improve fuzziness in the brain, because a lot of times, people call it chemo brain or radiation brain, because you lose focus when you receive these therapies. So there are, even specific things for depending on the symptom that you have. There are some foods that can help you keep your hair more. So there's a lot of things that patients can do to improve the quality of life while they are receiving chemotherapy.
Got it. So there's a lot, so much being written now about a plant-based nutrition. Can you talk about that? And hopefully, I'm sure it has some positive effect on cancer patients, but tell us more about plant-based nutrition.
There are hundreds of publications that show that for cancer patients, as I mentioned, a low glycemic vegan diet is the best for two reasons. Cancers feed on sugar tremendously. And the cancer doesn't care if the sugar comes from an ice cream or a banana. It's just sugar, and they love it, and they thrive on it. So low glycemic is very good for them. The other element that helps tumors is what is called insulin-like growth factor 2. This is a hormone that helps tumor grow, and this hormone is produced in our body or enticed to be produced by our body when we consume animal protein. So the more animal protein you have, the more of these protein is produced in your body, and the more the tumor is happy. So just by not consuming sugar and not consuming protein, you are going to undermine your cancer. That is why these diets are so important for cancer patients. If you don't have cancer, why should you eat a plant-based diet? Well, it has some benefits, and the China study showed that, and there are many. But what I recommend people as a preventive is to eat according to our design, we have 32 teeth, and only 4 are canine. So that's about 11%. So that means that only 11% of our intake in calories should come from animals. And when you study the China study, you will see the Chinese in rural areas. That's basically how they consume their energy, their caloric intake, and their incidence of cancer is minimal in comparison to the rest. So there's no question that a plant-based diet is beneficial to cancer patients, to diabetic patients, and it could be preventive for us. Again, I don't promote 100% vegetarian for somebody that has no disease, but we definitely abuse the consumption of protein and sugar on a daily basis and to our detriment.
Great. Thank you for that. Great explanation. So, listen, I know that people don't plan for this, meaning they don't plan for a loved one or even themselves to be confronted with cancer. And they're not thinking, all right, well, if that happens to me in the future, here's all the steps that I'm going to do. People don't think that way. I don't believe. And when it occurs, it's obviously devastating to the family, to themselves. So assuming there's our listeners, I know we have listeners out there that either have been confronted recently with a loved one, what recommendations do you give? Like, where do they turn? Where should they do their research? They're being hit with something they're probably not familiar with if they don't have any type of medical background. Like, where do they go? What do they do? They're obviously stressed. Any thoughts, any words of wisdom can you give to families listening out there?
Yes, the word cancer comes with a death sentence. And it's unfortunate that that's the way that people see it, because cancer does not have to be a death sentence. And now, information is paramount, but unfortunately there's so much information that it virtually can be even more confusing nowadays. I would recommend, I think that if you read a book like The Art and Science of Undermining Cancer, this is a book that gives you all the options. I talk about chemotherapy, radiation therapy, surgery, alternatives, and I explain very well in layman terms all of the therapies, everything that a patient goes through with cancer. And I just want your audience to know that there are many possibilities. Again, I want to stress cancer is not a death sentence. And unfortunately, in the medical industry, we are not addressing at all the fear, anxiety that patients face when they come to this diagnosis. So improving your spiritual fortitude is paramount. It's so important, because when you have spiritual fortitude, your emotions are going to be reflected in a positive way to you. So we have to look at it, in all of these aspects, how one is emotionally affected by this. The family, not only the patient is affected, but the whole family. And so reading a book like mine, and there are many others that will explain to you, because knowledge is powerful, and when you have knowledge, you will make then intelligent decisions about the possibilities that are out there, and then you will choose whatever you feel is the best for you. There's nobody that knows better than you how to deal with things once you have information. I think it's very wrong to go to the doctor and tell, well, you're the doctor and this is what, and I'm giving my life to you. Or that you go to a doctor and the doctor, you start asking questions and the doctor says, well, it's either my way or the highway. Well, take the highway, because that is not a good doctor for you. You have to establish a team with your doctor where you have a say in whatever is going to be done to you. And you can say yes, no, or maybe, or later. But inform yourselves so that you can make wise decisions as far as treatment is concerned, whether it's conventional or not.
Right. Great advice. So tell us again, the book, The Art of Science of Undermining Cancer. How can people go about and get the book again?
If you visit our website, of course, it's available in Amazon, and you can find it in a number of bookstores. But we are offering for you this book for free. If you visit our website, there you will find a spot there where you can download it to your computer and read it. And I think it's going to be a very beneficial for you.
Dr. Contreras, really appreciate you joining us today. We got another moment. Any additional words of wisdom to our listeners? Yes,
alternative therapies are very powerful. They're very, very well scientifically reviewed. And I encourage you to start looking into alternatives. And if you have cancer, if you have a loved one, so that you may want to combine whatever therapy you're receiving with some of the alternatives that may be available to you.
Great. Thank you again so much for joining us today on Boomers Today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for joining us on Boomers Today. Please be safe, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.